than Ethiopia. Probably terrain will be the reason that they'll give. But
in fact, they've already given.
Yes.
I've interviewed Kakamega on Cheche, and he explained why.
Yeah. On Cheche is a talk show.
Yeah.
But in a committee of parliament, it is fact after fact. You present fact. They'll present maps. They'll present archaeological designs. They are going to present opinions, feasibility studies, and all those things. Because there is a reason why it was originally 220. Why has it become 1.3 trillion? Surely, as a member of the public, you'd be interested to know. Do you know what pains me is that today, 50 years after independence, we are still paying for a project that was in the Mzee Kenyatta's government, so-called Kenred. So if we don't put our feet down today, as the current parliamentarians, 50 years later on, when these children will now be seated where I'm seated, they'll be saying, we are still paying China for the standard gauge rail line. This we shall not do, because that is not the Kenya we want. And why do I appeal to my colleague that we go and think about it? Is because why have people fought? Why have we had civil wars over the years? People fight for only one reason: resources. So the biggest resource in cost in the next 10 years will be LAPSSET projects. So if you do not allow the coastals to feel that sense of belonging, that sense of being part of it, by allowing their son to be in place, you are inviting what is happening in South Sudan. Because the Nuer are the ones who have the oil fields where Riek Machar comes from. And because they are knocking out Riek Machar, they are saying, no, we will not give Salva Kiir an opportunity to play with our resource and frustrate us. So we play around today. What we are doing in LAPSSET will pass. We don't know what instability it will give our country. And what's more important, the oil in Turkana. Again, the president, if not choked, will also again shortchange the people of Turkana. And one day you'll hear Turkana saying, Turkana is your Kenya. If we want to build Kenya, we must think Kenya. Not the way we are thinking.
Like, you could respond to that, and then we take questions.
Why don't we start from that most recent comment? And that's what I was talking about earlier. So if we speak for purposes of creating a certain mindset in our people, then as leaders, we have lost our virtue. I mean, why do we say that again in Turkana, the president will shortchange the people of Turkana? What are we saying to the people of Turkana? We are setting them in a certain mindset, such that by the time a good deal is placed on their hands, they'll be expecting to be shortchanged. And so as leaders, let's first move away from using language and terms and terminology that is not helpful to the people. But then let's deal with some of the issues that my colleague has raised, which entirely agree with some. For example, that Parliament and parliamentarians must stand to be counted at this time in the history of our country in ensuring that every project that is undertaken is absolutely above board and serves our people. That is not compromisable. It is uncompromisable even within the Jubilee government. That's what is happening. For example, if we are talking about that railway line, and I'm happy Mutegi remembers, because I watched that show that morning when Engineer Kamau was on Cheche, and he tried to explain the obvious sometimes. Even in my own little construction, when I'm putting up a small house in my own village, I'll do a small budget and say I'm going to spend 150,000 to put up a small house there. But by the time I'm through with the project or start moving on, I'll realize that that has changed. That proposal was probably undervalued, and that cost will rise. That happens to all of us most of the time. I'm not trying to justify anything, because what he has said is correct. When these matters come to the parliamentary committee, then hard evidence is going to be put on the table and justified. But let's not expect at any one time that everything that happens in Ethiopia is going to be absolutely comparable to what is happening to us here in Kenya. Let us not either also build that mindset in our people to expect that rhetoric that we use as politicians is the real gauge as to how is our country being run. And as a politician, I always make my business. And I would also want to appeal to my colleague and other colleagues in this legislative house right now. Let's make a difference in how this country has been run by being people who speak the truth. And let's move away completely from using language terminologies and idioms that whip the emotions of our people by seeming to lean towards what oppresses them most. Because when you appeal to the emotions, people will stop to reason. But if along responsibly we move as a country, and especially on crucial and important matters like developmental issues, where the shilling that a taxpayer has carved from their pocket, hard-earned money from their sweat, let them get a responsible report from all of us that says that absolutely this is what we are doing and this is what we are not doing, so that we can have a country that moves forward. Now, if we don't do that, then what do we reap? Exactly the same scenario that my colleague here has said. You'll have a people who are dissatisfied. You will have unrest within our people, but unjustified at the end of the day.
All right. Let's now take questions from the viewers, honorable senators. We have Shege Limuru directs the question.
We have nothing to write. How should we?
I'll just
You will
read
be
one
telling
and
us.
then absolutely.
Okay.
Now, this is Shege from Limuru says, unless Kimani is speaking from heaven, how do you appoint someone into an occupied office? Kimani's talk of pending appointments is mere wishful thinking.
Well, I think that question is based on the appointment of Muthaura to the office that was occupied, or even Barasa. But remember, and it is important to clarify to our viewer, that in that same Gazette notice that appointed Muthaura and also Dida, it is within the same Gazette notice that the other appointments were revoked, which is, like I said, within the authority and jurisdiction of the president and the government, for that matter. And let me make this clear while answering the question. Let us say to our people in the coast, let us say to our people in Western Kenya, where probably the good lady who was the chair of CDF hails from. And I also want to remind them that within the same appointments, they have also gotten other appointments. We have somebody appointed called Samuel Nyangweso.
Nyangweso is from Kisi. From Kisi, we share names.
Fine, but we still have others from that region who have been appointed. But key is this.
Are you saying there's no Muluya who has been appointed?
There's no, in fact, this is a pattern. These appointments have shown a pattern.
Let me finish, and then we bring the ethnicity question.
Yes.
Because if we bring ethnicity, then we will have to table the list. The list comprises of almost every single Kenyan tribe within here. But the point I was trying to make is this, that let us not say to our people that just look at that one who has been removed and close your eye to all the many who have been appointed. Because there are several people who have also been appointed. And like I've said, all over the world, when governments come into office, the trend is get your team that you think you can be able to deliver your vision with most clearly, most effectively in the offices. It doesn't matter. And look at what has been happening, for example, like in the US. When Barack Obama was elected president, no matter how good the other officers who sat in all the other offices are, he comes with his own team and says, this is the team that I trust to deliver on my agenda. The same is replicated the whole world over. Why are we trying to criminalize it when it happens here in Kenya?
That is true. The president has the prerogative to put in a fresh team. But I insist that as he does so, he should have the Kenyan face, he should respect the constitution, and he must be alive to the democratic dynamics of this country. We are tired of the people who worked after independence. Matu Wamai, Muthaura, still appearing on our screens, doing a job we can